Chapter 1. Corey stood on the front porch of his old man's cabin and frowned as the police car drove away. It wasn't the first time his old man had been hauled off, nor did he figure would it be the last. Half the time anymore, he worked to pay the legal expenses from his old man's troubles. His dad, who seemed to only be getting crazier as he got older, had been taken down to the station more than a dozen times in the past 6 months. As it was, he had had to sell his newer truck to pay his lawyer, Grant Holton. Shaking his head and leaning against the post, he wondered how much this trip would end up costing him. Wes Tanner, one of Fairplay's sheriffs, had hinted that maybe it was time to stop fighting and let his dad go into a state facility. "There are places for people like him," Wes had said, wiping the sweat from his brow with a bandana. People like him? He had been confused. "Your dad's getting up there in years. You know," Wes had leaned on the railing of the deck. "Some people lose their minds a bit the older they get." "Like Mrs. Nolan?" He had felt anger kick him in the gut, hard and swift. "Hell," Wes shook his head. "I don't think your dad would do anything that drastic." "No, but you're suggesting it." He pushed off from the porch and had stood his ground. Wes shrugged. "He did just shoot your neighbor's dog with rock salt pellets for peeing on his truck's tire." Corey sighed and relaxed a bit. "Yeah, I'll be heading into town to see how much the vet bill will be." He shook his head and seriously thought about buying some flowers for old Mrs. Thompson. After all, the dog was the old lady's best friend. Actually, Corey had really liked Dutch, the woman's albino mutt. Dutch was only in their yard because Corey had been feeding it scraps while the older lady was laid up with the flu. During the past month, he had also been helping her out with her other animals and her ranch, which bordered his father's property. Kicking the door open, he stormed in to change out of the bloody clothes and into a dress shirt and dress pants he kept at the place. He knew he had a busy day ahead of him, kissing ass and paying for his father's bad temper. One of the stops on his list was to Mrs. Thompson's place to let her know that Dutch had been taken into the vet with his hindquarters bloody and full of rock salt pellets. Corey was thankful that he had changed out the shotgun shells in the old man's gun a few weeks back. Otherwise, the dog could have been seriously hurt, and his father would be looking at bigger charges. His heartstrings tugged when he remembered how Dutch had looked up at him as he had helped carry him to the back of Chase Graham's truck. Chase was the local vet, and he had assured Corey that Dutch would be fine and most likely ready to go home by the following day. Still, he knew that he couldn't afford a vet bill on top of the lawyer bill he knew was coming, along with the bail money he'd have to come up with. Maybe it would be cheaper for him to have his dad hauled away and locked up. At least he couldn't get his hands on a gun again. After showering and driving into town, he stood in the lobby of Grant's office and waited for the bomb to drop. His next stop would be the vet clinic, but for now, he needed to see if his father could get out on bail and what exactly the charges would be. "Corey," Grant opened the door and motioned for him to go in. "I just got off the phone with the courthouse." He shut the door behind him and motioned for Corey to take a seat. "And?" He wiped his sweaty palms on his dress jeans. Grant shook his head. "Looks like they want to ship him to Tyler this time." "What?" He almost jumped out of his chair. "What for? It was just rock salt."